and loudly, and then let for like answering and delay and things like that in case there's connection issues.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks again for being here. I'm gonna let the kids take over.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay, I can read the summary. Okay, so in our class, we are reading a book called Dear Martin by Nick Stone. It is about a 17-year-old boy named Justice. He is arrested because he was trying to help his girlfriend get in the car. He was trying to help her and was going to take her home so she wouldn't have to drive. A cop comes over to him and assumes he was trying to hurt the girl since he was wearing a black hoodie and he was African American. He was handcuffed for several hours. This causes Justice to see the world differently. He starts writing letters to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In the letters, he explains what happens to him and his feelings about the racial injustice happening in the world. Justice is motivated to make a difference for once and for all. He wants to make better decisions, wants to be more like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, so we have some questions. We're going to go through some questions, and you can just...
Fire away.
You're ready, then I'll take.
Okay, Olivia.
Okay, I'm going to ask the first question. It's, what is the process of trying to start a story, and what do you do to come up with ideas?
The question was, what do I do to start a story and come up with ideas?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so everyone does it a little differently. Most employed reporters have a beat, which means we have one subject that we're responsible for covering. So I cover careers mostly. So I'm constantly checking the news for workplace issues and laws and news that I should cover. And then separately, I have this that I kind of chip away at over the long term. So basically have a giant, every idea good story idea, no matter what the topic is. And when I get a free afternoon or a weekend that I'm not doing anything, I spend some time researching it, and then out to the people that know, experts and professors, and sometimes people that have also written about it before. So there's a lot of research that goes into it before you even start writing to determine whether or not it's something that
Okay, so this one, like, have you ever written about anything to do with, like, a cop shooting an African American man or woman?
I haven't personally. I have covered things like the fallout.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I cover mostly workplace issues. So I have written about what it is for people of color to get a job, and how hard it is to be in a workplace for women who wear a hijab, and how it's that the type of people, and people like Justice aren't shown in the best light, even outside of the media coverage that they're getting. So not directly, but in a roundabout way, I've covered race issues.
Okay, if someone was just starting to become a journalist, what advice would you give them?
Can you repeat that?
If someone was just starting to become a journalist, what advice would you give them?
now it's to know how to do everything in terms of being not only able to write and report, but being able to shoot a video or make a podcast, web, and interview. So these days, you can't just have one skill, one set of knowledge. You have to be really well-rounded, I would say. And then on the flip side, if there is like one topic that a journalist in training is interested in, I would suggest that they become an expert in that and know more about that than anyone else. If you have an expert level knowledge in something, then you're always the person that people come to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever written about police brutality? If yes, how did you formulate your opinions to where you aren't hurting anyone or stepping on people's toes?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Okay. Have you ever written about police brutality? If yes, how do you formulate your opinions to where you aren't hurting anyone's opinion?
That's a tough question. I have not written about police brutality, but when it comes to subjects that are to police brutality, especially those that involve race, when I'm talking about a specific race, I make sure that I interview, that I do a ton of research, and that I'm not just kind of parroting what people in power are saying, to bring in voices, disenfranchised voices, and really talk to as many people as I can that are not in position.
Okay. Here's.
Throughout our book, Dear Martin, by Nick Stone, police brutality plays a big role. What are your opinions on police brutality? Have you ever written about well, that's the thing. Has it ever affected you personally or
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. Of anyone journalism right now who doesn't have a strong opinion about police brutality. When you go through journalism school, you're taught to question authority and to act as a check. Institutions of power, like the police, like politicians, and there is no greater position of power than a cop who is holding a gun and a person who isn't. So, a way of saying is very
Oh, Kaden, go. Kaden.
Oh, okay.
Number 6.
Yeah, I know. Maybe to make sure it makes sense. If you had to write about an event that is in our story, what would you pick and what would be your main points?
So sorry, you cut out. One more time.
If you had to write about an event that is in our story, what event would you pick and what would be your main points?
An event in the book.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to read the entire book. I just scanned it. But there were so many. Even in the first couple of chapters that I did read, there were issues that could have necessitated a story. One thing that I saying that I don't know if you guys have talked about it all, is the talks about beauty and how whiteness and blackness plays into this. Even when Justice actors is talking about his ex-girlfriend, beautiful she is because she's of mixed race. And a topic that I think deserves more attention, this idea that someone is good or beautiful because, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm gonna skip them.
Have you ever written about a racial profiling? If so, what was it about, and why did you choose to write it?
Can you understand?
Have you ever written about racial profiling? If so, what was it about, and why did you choose to write it?
Yeah, so I have written about racial profiling in The Office, as I mentioned. The story basically was that hiring managers or bosses, for the sake of this argument, with inherent bias, whether they like it or not, or whether they're trying to or not. So the story looked at kind of a resume or an email. You can stack the system against a person of color. And I decided to write about it because, this mandate to write about workplace issues, and really I want to try to not just for people that look like me.
Okay.
Have you ever had any backlash about an article that you have written? If so, what article was it, and why did you get backlash from it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I get backlash constantly, mostly from people writing in to my or the website that I write for, saying that I have I'm trying to think of it as of a good example. There was a story I wrote recently about how hard it is for people who have been for several years to get back into the workforce. And it was a straight story. Lots of hard facts, lots of research. I didn't give my personal opinion at all, but for some reason I still of letters about how the liberals, like just the of media consumption these days.
So usually when you're writing articles, do you is it kind of hard to stay away from your feelings and opinions and kind of write more of what you've researched?
It is hard, yeah. Everyone has their own feelings and opinions, and they always, no matter how hard you try, unbiased, you're a human being. At times, the story that you're writing, the topics that you're attracted to because of your own bias. So, yeah, it's absolutely hard.